Saint Anthony began his initial prayer life as a teenager when his wealthy family sent him to the Augustinian Abbey of St. Vincent at the age of 15. As his intentions towards God kept fortifying, Saint Anthony decided to join the Franciscan order at the age of 26, which was against his family's orders. Saint Anthony's parents wished for him to further the good fortunes that his family had already possessed, but all he wanted to do was respond to the constant urge that was pulling him towards God. Although Saint Anthony died only 10 years after joining the Franciscan order, he left an eternal mark on the Catholic Church forever. Through these 10 years of really being involved in the Church, Saint Anthony became a doctor of the Church, the patron saint of finding lost articles, and the second quickest saint to ever be canonized. Saint Anthony would often preach to heretic groups that would never listen to him. As a result, he would often preach the Gospels to fish instead, because he believed that they would appreciate and love God as much as he did. Saint Anthony did this because he wanted to spread the word of God as much as he could. Saint Anthony began to establish his legacy after his big move to Padua, Italy. In Padua, crowds of over 30,000 would come to listen to his lectures. Since these crowds were way too large for the church to hold, Saint Anthony was forced to preach in vast fields which would enable larger crowds to come listen. Saint Anthony is often portrayed as holding baby Jesus, a lily, or a book, which is why the church blesses lilies on his feast day. He is portrayed as holding baby Jesus because one night towards the end of his life, Saint Anthony went to a castle just outside Padua that he attended to regularly. He and other friars would pray in small hermit cells in the chapel here. On this special night, a light glowed in his cell and Jesus appeared to Anthony in the form of an infant. Saint Anthony took hold of baby Jesus and cradled him while communicating with him as well. Saint Anthony never revealed what happened to him this night, but after his death, the man that owned the castle who saw this amazing spectacle revealed the story and told the truth of what took place in Saint Anthony's hermit cell that night. Saint Anthony is also portrayed as holding a lily as a result of a posthumous miracle. One day, someone put a lily on the statue of Saint Anthony in a church in Padua. This lily remained fully alive for an entire year and even grew 2 more blossoms a year after. These lilies caused the church to fill with a wonderful fragrance which appeased people more and more. When the shrine of Saint Anthony was created, lilies were included in his honor, which is the reason he is often portrayed as holding them. The lily represents Saint Anthony's purity and his battle against the demons since childhood. Lastly, Saint Anthony is always holding a book or the Bible as a symbol of his doctrine, his preaching of his teaching, which was always inspired by the Bible. Saint Anthony's feast day is June 13th, which is also the anniversary of his death. On this day, the church blesses lilies and celebrates the miracle of Saint Anthony's bread. Saint Anthony's bread originates to one of his miracles in which he restored the life of a little boy. The story has it that one day a little boy drowned and died near the Basilica of Saint Anthony. His mother brought the body to St. Anthony and told him that if he restored his life, then she would donate the same amount of wheat equal to the weight of her son to the poor. St. Anthony restored the little boy's life through God, and in return, the woman kept her promise and donated the wheat to the poor. This miracle is known as St. Anthony's bread, and it stands for the promise of giving alms in return for a favor asked to St. Anthony, fulfilled by God. St. Anthony became the patron saint of finding lost articles based on one of his own personal experiences. The story has it that one day, a novice who had grown tired of the religious ways stole St. Anthony's book of Psalms as well as his altar, which contained all of his personal teachings. He was so upset that his most valued items were stolen that he began to pray to God to make the novice return with his possessions. As St. Anthony concluded his prayer, the novice felt a sudden urge to return what was not his and to once again return to the religious life. Due to this event, St. Anthony is known as the patron saint of finding lost articles. This prayer not only asks St. Anthony to give us peace of mind while an article of ours is lost, but it also has a much deeper theme. We ask him to, let me rather lose all things than lose God, my supreme good. If we ever lose sight of this, then St. Anthony shall take away all of our possessions in return for a never-ending relationship with Christ. Although St. Anthony died at the young age of 36, he was a very influential individual on the Catholic religion. He was a diligent teacher and preacher who loved spreading the word of God more than anything else. Through his miracles and love for God, Anthony became a doctor of the Church, the patron saint of finding lost articles, and one of the most prominent saints in history.